You good?
Yeah, good.
Okay. I forget which episode this is. To be completely honest with you.
13, 14, something in there.
Wait, it's further up there. It's
Is
further
it?
up there than that, I think.
Oh, really?
But...
Are we past? Are we at 15? The big 1-5?
Wait, we might have already done 1-5, no?
Really? Jeez Louise. We're good.
We're pretty good. We're doing pretty good. Anyway, yeah, we already did 1-5. So this is episode 16.
Jeez.
Welcome back, everybody. I think we're on sort of like a travel topic kick. That is something
Right.
I want to talk about today. And I guess before we get into it, I just want to address something that may have been like we've never really explained it, but it comes up a lot in our conversations. And so, given that this is like a travel podcast and we're trying to talk about, countries, societies that are like not our own, and just like the experience of visiting them or learning about them, why do we talk so much about Japan? Especially since we had a whole episode where we basically were like making fun of people who are obsessed with Japan, right?
Right.
I mean, there's a very easy explanation for this, and that's just because me and Callum, we've been to like quite possibly like I can't think of a single country that we've been to that both of us have been to, other than Japan.
Right.
And then even in Japan, we've only both been to Tokyo, because Callum has been to other places that I have not been. I've been to other places that Callum has not been within Japan. And then I'm thinking even like the US, like our like knowledge of the US is very different,
Right.
in terms of like what we have in common of what we know. And so Japan comes up as a very common topic because of that, and as a way to like relate to one another. And before we get into the actual topic, I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, it even goes beyond that. Like, first, yes, it's a shared location, and we're talking about traveling around the world, and we don't have very many of those. So it becomes a good point of comparison there. Two, my girlfriend is Japanese, is a big relevant detail there. That has caused a lot of interest in relation to Japan. My brother has a big interest in Japan and has had that for a while and studies Japanese. So there's a lot of things that connect us to Japan in some ways. Nico's been studying some Japanese. So, yeah, it just becomes like a setting where we can both speak with some knowledge and not be like completely misinformed. Not that we're experts on Japan at all whatsoever, but
No,
we at least have
definitely
some
not.
information on it and have shared experiences there. So yeah, it's a relevant point because it has been probably our primary destination that we've talked about, and yeah.
It's just something that I found funny, because I mean, I've not listened. I think I definitely have listened back to most of these, or maybe even all of them. So, I've heard it that
It just comes up.
we're like, oh yeah, that's it's like that thing in Japan, or like, oh yeah, it's like that's kind of like the one in Japan. Anyway,
Right.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
But,
no, that's fair.
I guess what I wanted to talk about today was somewhat, I guess, related to this idea of Japan and sort of how people view it, and maybe not even just Japan, but if we're talking about, Americans specifically, since we're American, how Americans view other countries, idolize them. Specifically, I'm thinking about sort of the, I mean, I do this too, but Americans go abroad, you're like, wow, everything's so walkable, and
Right.
I don't need a car, and I love being able to like go to the store that's right there, and everything's clean and nice, and I love that like everything's so close, and that you can find everything that you need in like a very small area, which is like true of like very few places in the US. And so other than like the extremely large cities.
Right.
And I guess, I don't know, like for me, I see easy positives and negatives for both, and just based on the fact that we just came off the transportation tier list episode, we've put car in the number one slot. And I don't know, when I talk to people who come back from vacation in Asia or Europe, all they talk about is how much they loved being able to walk around everywhere, right? And there's somewhat of like I don't know if it's like an envy that us Americans feel for like other countries and people who live there just not having to use a car, but it's something like that where like we feel like we're behind because we're still relying on the car. And I think it's true in some ways, but then I think that just like the American lifestyle as a whole just makes it really hard to like, and it just makes it really hard to like push for this walkable city kind of lifestyle.
And like
it's so different. I mean, obviously there's New York, but New York's an outlier.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like I think that what this like comes down to is, and I kind of think about this concept a lot, is like the concept of viewing a place as a visitor versus viewing the place as a resident, and like how that changes all of your perceptions on like basically every single experience that you have. And transportation, I think public transportation is a really big example of that, in the sense that like, say you go to, I mean, not that like, obviously American cities don't have the transportation that other cities do, and whether it be in Europe or Asia, but I think that also like most of these people probably are not even residents of a city, right? So like you're coming from suburbia and you go to a city, you're only comparing and contrasting like your experience when I went for a visit in this city versus when I'm going for a visit in that city. And then it's like, okay, that's nice, but you have to then think about like, what about the people who are in your shoes in like suburbia? And I feel like in that case, like, or like even rural areas, right? Like in rural areas of these countries, if like cars are important here and nice here, at least for us, right? Like neither of us are from a city, hence probably our ranking of car as the very top thing. And so I feel like when people then, they often like restrict their view of other countries exclusively to the cities, and then say, oh, it's so nice that they have better public transportation, not thinking about all the people who are outside of the cities where like that doesn't even apply to them. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like it's one way that like the visitor versus resident perception can be skewed.
No, yeah, I think that does make sense. And I think that whole like visitor versus living there perception kind of, I don't know, that's kind of what I'm interested in here. Like, I guess I think we've talked a little bit about it in past episodes, but in some ways, at least when I'm traveling, I hope to see a little bit about what life is like in another country. And it's kind of this thing of like, is that even like a doable thing, just based on the fact that, you don't have to go to work. Right. You're probably going to be more free with your money. I try, I mean, I guess I do spend a lot of money here too as well, but you just think about it a lot less because you're on vacation, or you're just, you're traveling is the thing.
Right.
And so there's kind of this attitude of like, oh, I'm only going to be here once, or I'm only going to be here once in the next however long. So I really have to make use of like the time I have. And then, yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, like, at least for me, because I've in the past at least like very much like idolized like abroad and other countries and like the ways that other systems do it. I think in many ways I've kind of gotten lost in the sauce of like not appreciating what we have in the US, which I mean, I genuinely do think that there are really, really good things about the US lifestyle, and that these things get lost online, especially when we're talking about what is like a functionally good city, because we don't have like functionally good cities, but I see so many positives to how good of a life you can live in the US that is not impossible in other countries, but is much more out of reach for most people.
Right. 100%. I think like, yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing, like you said, is that you kind of miss this aspect of work when you're visiting somewhere, which is like so huge, right? Like that's like what people are doing with the vast majority of their day. And then you visit this place and you don't work at all. And like what's nice about the US is that I think generally there's just better industry, like better opportunities in the cities. Like, a city that runs on tourism or like whatever is not the same as New York City or even really any major city in the US that is like more industry driven. And I think that makes a huge difference in the lifestyle. And so like, yeah, all these places you view with a very skewed perspective, like, I think Japan is a good example. It's like a very classic example of this, where like everyone goes and the user experience as a visitor is great, I think, by like almost every definition. Like for Westerners, it's cheaper, the transportation's good, it's beautiful, there's so many different things to do, the city's huge. But then Japan also, on the inside, everyone that you see, they have to make a living, and making a living in Japan is frequently hard, and harder than the US in many ways, with like longer hours expectations and more social hierarchy and a lot of these variables that like, should a US citizen be pushed into that, they would be extremely, I think they would struggle a lot probably. And so it's like, okay, you can go and do all your fun little things, and people then create that as their definition of like a functional or ideal society. It's like Japan has it so figured out, like no one steals, and the trains are fast and whatever. And it's like, okay, sure, but like what's the average experience of a person living in Tokyo? Is like, yeah, maybe they use the fast trains, but they use the fast trains to get to their job that they have to work long hours at and have to, struggle through these sorts of things. And that's just something a lot of people miss, I think.
Mm. I mean, yeah, and I do think there's also like the other way around. It's like, if you're, I mean, not that I can like personally like go to the US for the first time ever, but at least people that I've talked to that were visiting for the first time, I think it's just like, I mean, we can't really say like the lifestyle in the US is like slow. It's definitely not slow, and people are like very obsessed with working in like a different way from Japan. But it's like, I don't know, it's just like, I don't want to say it's like everything's like bigger, but that's kind of a way you can think about it. I mean, just in daily life for most people, you're just gonna have like so much more space, and I think like people do live in shoeboxes in some cities and stuff like that, but for the average American, like they're like quite balling in terms of space compared to someone in Hong Kong or Tokyo, or right, whatever. And even, I mean, it's also just a cultural thing. I mean, even like rural Japanese houses are like not huge either.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a good point. And like that, once again, that's kind of not something that you would see at like the visitor level, right? Like you're not walking into homes, you're not walking into apartments. So someone comes and visits a US city and they walk around and maybe they see dirtier streets and they see less organization than Tokyo, but they don't see that, you know, the average apartment is 2 times the size. Maybe not in New York, but generally. And so like these sorts of hidden things, yeah, I think are like a huge difference in the way that you're viewing different countries. And I think that one of the other examples that I see of this is almost on the flip side of Japan. I mean, like in some ways it's related, but people kind of idolize chaos sometimes. Like Americans, I guess. Like, you know, Americans visit, I don't know, other Asian cities maybe, like Taiwan or, I don't know, like some maybe even like, I mean, I don't think that many Americans idolize Indian cities, probably, but like some of these countries, I think have like a feel of like it's hustling and bustling, even in a way beyond the American cities. And there's like street markets for fresh fruit and like these sorts of things that are like kind of classic and more developing settings. Like even when I was in Kenya, you have like all these street markets of fruit and things like that, and like they're beautiful on it, like from your like Western eye, when you're like we associate that with like farmers market and like niche, like, you know what I mean, like we associate that with like farm grown farmers market, like nice, and it's almost like we're going backwards in a way. And I'm like guilty of this for sure. Like I'll look at the fruit market and like take a picture because it looks really pretty and nice, and you're like, wow, isn't it so nice that they have such fresh fruits available and this and this and that. And it's like, yes, but that's like the cost of that is like worse food security, like greater food insecurity, like it's not organized as well. There might be like more pesticides, there might be more like insects in it, like there's this like it's not America, it's not a farmer's market in Palo Alto, you know what I mean? Like it's like fruits from a rural farm that got put there, and like you're probably gonna be fine, but like I don't know, like there's a reason that it progressed to a more organized system in these like developed settings. And so like that's one of those things where it's so easy to go on a trip and be like, wow, like that's so cool. And like it is in some ways, but it's also like you have to see it for what it is. Like it's developing, and it's like there are drawbacks to that too, even if it looks aesthetic. And I think people don't really think beyond the nice aesthetics oftentimes.
Yeah. So I guess like to what extent do you think people just like I guess the question I want to get at is like why are we traveling? Like what's the, like at the end of the day, like what's really the goal there? Because I mean, everyone has their own main reason for doing it, and it could be, I don't know, they want to go eat the food, or they want to go see the sights, or there may be some like other reasons for going specific places. Like, I don't know, like some laws might be a little different. You might be able to do something that you can't do in your home country. Even if you're like, I don't know, like maybe marijuana is like not legal in your country, you can do that in the US or Canada or whatever, you know. That's right. Like we have that as well. There are things you can do here that you just can't do other places. So like I don't know, it's just like, because like the more I think about it, it's just it feels like a strange phenomenon that's been invented, that like we've commercialized the act of like just going somewhere else.
It's like going somewhere and like having fun, like as a trip.
You just go there and you just like kind of chill,
look around,
and like that's like like in some ways I really see it as being like the driving force for like a lot of like, especially like, you know, middle income Americans. Like what else are you doing all year? Like you're working all year. Like, yeah, you're saving your money, but what is keeping you sane? Like what's keeping you like going? You're gonna get to go on a trip in like, you know, like 6 months, and you're gonna have like a great time, and it's gonna be really nice, like for sure. Like I'm not saying this is like a bad thing to have. It's just a little weird in some ways.
No, it's super true. And then there's like these degrees of like trying to like be more authentic, I guess. And like, you know, you range from the people who are, you know, staying in the nicest hotel to people who are staying in hostels or whatever that might look like, or couch surfing. But I mean, even then, you're still not like, as much as I try to like act like when I travel somewhere, I'm trying to like get a vibe for what it's like to live there and have an authentic experience. Like I'm not having an authentic experience again. Like once again, like I don't have a job there. Like I don't have like a whole network there, and like my life's not there. So it's like obviously I can't fully understand or replicate what it's like to have a life there. Sorry. Without living there. So yeah, it's true. Like I don't even know what it is you're chasing. Kind of like you're not really chasing like fully understanding living there. Like for me, I guess one part of it is nature. Like for sure, I really like seeing new places. But and you can still like observe culture and like take part in culture. But yeah, it's surely not to like just get the most accurate representation of life possible, because after all, like at the end of the day, like life everywhere probably converges like a little bit. Like obviously there are places with worse and better quality of life, but it probably all converges a little bit to like, you know, you do the things that you got to do to put food on the table, and you go home and you watch Netflix or something. Like it's not like everyone's living like this super adventurous, extravagant lifestyle all the time. Like, you know, people just kind of are existing, doing their thing. And so like that's not what you're chasing on your 1 week off from doing your thing in your place. I guess you're just trying to like, yeah, I don't know, just see a new place. I mean, and I still think you can still gain a lot of perspective. Like you might not gain an understanding of what it's like to live there, but you still can gain a lot of perspective from like the principles of the people there and what people that you meet and the conversations that you have. And for me, I think that's also a big part of travel, is like kind of that meeting people aspect. I think is pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. This is kind of why like I am interested in living in different places to kind of test this theory, because
yeah,
you know, I've only lived in the US for my whole life, except for, you know, I guess I lived in Kenya for 2 months doing work. But, you know, my lifestyle in Kenya was like not the average Kenyan experience. It was like an extremely wealthy person in Kenya's experience, basically. And that was my first time ever like truly living somewhere outside of the country for an extended period and like going to work and those sorts of things. But that's kind of like what I want to do, in part. Like I do want to like live different places and kind of like, you know, have a real experience and see, you know, does it converge maybe, or like are there places that I genuinely find myself, because I tend to be a grass is greener person. I think as does, you know, much of the world. You get a little bored and you imagine like life would be so good over there, and I'm kind of the mind like, all right, so let's try it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
let's give it a go. Like, I have one life, I might as well try it and see and find out if it really is greener over there, or if I was making it up the whole time. And so like for me, that's something that I do like want to do, is try and be new places and live new places. And yeah.
I mean, no, yeah, I totally agree. Like I mean, we've talked about it. I want to live abroad as well, and these kinds of things are big motivators. And also just like you said, I don't know, you get a little bored, or you feel like you're a little bored. Maybe you're not actually bored, but whatever the case, just some sort of like weird pull that I get from just literally anywhere else, or just like something that is like, a little different.
No, that is.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know though, and I do think like I have been abroad for extended periods of time. There's easily been things I've missed about the United States, like after after a number of time, and I think that especially it's just so hard to think about things like long term. Like I really do think like humans are terrible at this. Um, you know, even within our own lifetimes, like especially for like posterity, like we're not doing anything good for posterity ever. But even for like myself and in my life, like it's hard for me to like think of things that are like positively benefit me in the future, at least for me personally. And I think that like this applies for when you're trying to compare like your life in another country versus your own. Like you don't like you're not thinking about the things you're gonna lose when you're planning to move somewhere else, because really all you can think about is what you're gonna gain. Because why would you like focus on the bad parts of doing like a like inherently like pretty risky and like big move and thing that is probably going to change your life, especially if you're there for, you know, even like 2 or 3 years, like can change your life.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah, I think it's it's a good point. Like, and I think that you kind of like have to have a little bit of that like optimism, like if you're going to make that jump, because inherently like you're just doing something different and it's gonna be like somewhat uncomfortable maybe, like, and so I think that the only way that it works is if you go into it thinking it's gonna be better at the very least, right? Like, I mean, otherwise why would you do it? But like,
yeah.
But yeah, I think that is like a prereq, if you will, is to be a little bit blind to the downsides. I mean, with that said, like, you don't want to like just be like, all right, like, I like the food in Vietnam, so like let's hit the road. Like, all right, like maybe we gotta have a little bit more foresight than that. But yeah, I do think that, and I also think that I'm kind of the perspective that overthinking these sort of things is like inherently scary. So like you just have to find a good middle ground. You know, like what I would kind of equate it to is one of us, like, I had a period where I like basically I had a hard quarter in school. I was like super down bad, and then like so basically I was doing a lot of like AI classes at the time. I get to spring, I'm in this class, it's AI ethics. Like, I do not want to do more AI stuff. I took like 3 AI classes last quarter. I'm like, all right, like, it's time to switch it up, do something new. But I'm in this AI ethics class, but it's a writing class kind of. So I asked my prof, I'm like, look, like, can I just do something totally different? And so I ended up doing a project on like fulfillment and purpose and happiness in life. And it's like at the end of the quarter, like everyone's presenting their like AI project. I just presented on happiness. It was really funny. But like what my conclusion, and for that, like, you know, I read a lot of like philosophy and things of that nature. And, you know, I found myself thinking about this a lot because it was
figured it out.
But like one of the, I think, key principles about happiness is that like you have to find like a good middle ground of thinking about it, right? Because like you want to have it be a principle in your life, because otherwise you might be ignorant about like what might benefit your happiness or optimize for other things that end up hurting your happiness, or like these sorts of things. But you simultaneously can't like obsess over happiness, because like it's one of those things where like, you know, all of these like big open-ended things, there's no answer. Like there's no real answer. And so like when you obsess about it, like all the philosophers who were like the big happiness philosophers were like all miserable. And I guess that huge tangent is to draw a parallel to like whenever you're thinking about something that's like a massive open question, and such as, you know, living somewhere entirely different, or things like that, like you have to find some middle ground of like really over analyzing it. And just in life in general, like you have to find middle ground of like being careful and cautious about the decisions you make, and also like extremely over analyzing things to the point that like you ruin the experience, if that makes sense. I don't know if that made sense, but I feel like I drew that parallel in my head.
No, I mean, I mean, yeah, I've read an okay amount of like happiness philosophy. I don't. Did you read anything about the like Taoism for that or?
A little bit, but not much. It was mostly. I mean, I was mostly reading like classic. Like I read like Man's Search for Meaning, which is a book by Viktor Frankl, and then like Nietzsche and like
Nietzsche.
Kierkegaard, and let's think, like all like the old school classic dudes. But yeah.
Yeah, I always find those like interesting and like very hard to like apply to my own life at least. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, I think that they are like somewhat hard to apply. But I think that there's like just like a few base principles. Like at the end of the day, like I said, like there's no answer. Like no one's ever gonna be able to tell you something that's gonna make you happy, right? Like that's ridiculous.
right.
So I think that the things that I usually take away from it are like I don't know, I think some sort of balance between like short-term positives and long-term positives, like I forget the names. There's like hedonism versus whatever the other one. Hedonism is like seeking short-term pleasure, and the other one is seeking like long-term fulfillment. Like that's one thing that I think is like, again, you have to have some balance, at least like, or maybe there's like a spectrum of like who kind of ends up enjoying their life when they seek each of those two principles. But at least in my life, I think that like I need to be somewhere in the middle. Like I can't just operate on like fulfillment exclusively. That doesn't really do it for me. Like I feel like I do need to have things that I'm like enjoying in the short term, but like I simultaneously do have to have like a concept of something I'm working towards, maybe. And like general things like that, I end up taking away from it. I feel like I would have to like go back and look at more specific things that I feel like there's definitely more than that, but yeah, I think general things I end up taking away, and like you can apply, but like all of the specifics I do think become a little bit like hard to relate to in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, and what you said kind of makes me think in some ways just about how our lives have been structured so far, at least, and in term maybe like that does influence sort of how you or how we sort of perceive what happiness or like what our goals should be. Where like for the past 20 whatever years, I guess a little less than that because you're too young then, but it's just like, what are you really doing everything for all day? It's like to progress to the next stage of school essentially, and then in a lot of ways, like what gives you like satisfaction in terms of like the work that you're doing, and like at least in terms of like the way that's like society would frame it, is like your grades.
Right.
And I don't know, I feel like in some ways, as we come to the end of this like grades driven life, and I mean grades have definitely like not been as important to me as they were prior to like entering university. It's just like everything just feels like so not like, it's not like cooked, it's not like a bad thing, but it's like, in the past, meaning and purpose felt so easy because it was like, yeah, I just gotta like pop off on this exam, gotta write this nice paper, like
have
that's
fun with
it.
my friends.
But have fun with my friends, whatever, like I'll be happy, and like genuinely, like it's like it's good, like you are happy. But not that we've not even left college yet, and I'm already like, it's already like a little hard to imagine sort of, I don't know, like
Right.
getting compliments from your boss to mean the same thing to you, because at the end of the day you're going to work to get money, not necessarily to do good at your job. And maybe there's incentives for you to do good at your job, but like the main reason why you're going to work is to get a good job, rather than like, or not get a good job, but to get money.
Right.
So it's just like the incentives just feel so weird, and I think that's why I've just been thinking a lot about like what I value and sort of how I like conceive of happiness, and sort of like maybe, I don't know, like I'd like to live abroad, but like, is this just like a escape from the like impending like
the inevitable
the inevitable, like, oh no, like what am I gonna do in my life?
Right.
So
yeah I mean
know. Yeah,
it's super true. It's like too real. I think like, yeah, it's tricky. I mean, and the other thing is like in school you kind of take for granted that you have this privilege to like, as you get older you have more freedom in the things that you study, and you can kind of like pivot when you want and do what you want. Like every quarter I get to choose my classes and be like, all right, like, like I said, I took a bunch of AI stuff and I got like overwhelmed at the end of that quarter, and then I was just like, okay, pivot. Like I'm just going to take different stuff next quarter, right? And like,
right,
because your incentive structure is like enjoying learning and doing well in your classes, and like that's very different from, like you said, work, where like there's no pivot, like at least not in the same way. Like it's not like, oh, like if you're drawing your meaning exclusively from like these more like hedonistic, like short term, I'm liking my experience, then you might find yourself like struggling to cope with like, I'm working on a bad project. Like you can't just leave. You can't just, every quarter it doesn't switch anymore. Like you're pretty locked in for a while. And so, yeah, like your incentive structure becomes like money in a lot of ways. And then it's like a question of what I've been thinking about is like, how much can I optimize to have a job that I also like find purpose in? And like, what would that even look like?
right.
Like what, yeah, like in what world, I think that the difficulty is that inherently the structure of jobs is just like, for me, semi undesirable, right? Like I'm passionate about some things that like I could work jobs for, definitely. But just because I'm passionate about something, does that mean that I want to sit at a desk and do it 8+ hours a day, 5+ days a week? Like those are kind of two different questions, right? Like, and so I think that's kind of where I've sat with this struggle is like, there are plenty of things that are like, you could find a job in it, and it's like in doses something that you would really enjoy and be passionate about maybe, but like,
yeah,
how do you have to reform your incentive structure and like your reward system, your like mental reward system, to like find happiness in doing that thing all the time, kind of, and having it like define your life. I think that like one of the answers is maybe that you can have an impact in jobs, like more so than school, right? Like school you do for you. It's like kind of inherently a selfish pursuit. Like you get your grades for you, and you like, maybe you can kind of like conceptualize it as like, oh, I'm getting grades to get a good job, like for someone else, for my parents or whoever that might be. But like the point being, like your schoolwork impacts you primarily, whereas like in work, you're kind of like customer forward, like your hours are going into building something that someone else is going to use or consume or whatever it might be. Like, the whole point is that you're contributing to society in some way, which
right.
maybe which maybe becomes a sense of fulfillment. I mean, I think surely it has to. but it's just a question of like, how do you balance the selfish pursuit of enjoying what you're doing with the selflessness of building something for other people to make sure that you can do it sustainably, right? And like at the end of the day, even if your pursuit is to do it for other people, like if you don't like it enough to sustain it, then you'll help less people, right? Like you need to do something that you can sustainably do so that you can help more people. If that's like what you're drawing your fulfillment from. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, man. That's how it is.
Right. And
It's
the
rough.
international thing is interesting too, because yeah, it sometimes does feel like maybe it's like well, like, you know, like if I have a job that like I don't like here versus a job that I don't like somewhere else, like at least I'm somewhere else. That's interesting. Like I don't know. Like I guess that's some positive, right? Like if you but is it? Like I don't know, because then you get bored there and then you're stuck. Or you move again, but that's not sustainable. And so like in that sense you do have to, I think, ensure that like you're making the move for more than just boredom. Like it has like some foreseeable benefit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, no, it definitely, yeah, it definitely has to be not just because like you're sick and tired of where you are, but I do think there's like a lot of like reality and like what you just said. It's like, what if you just like show up there and you're like doing whatever it is, and you also don't like that, and maybe it's not your environment that's like leading you to feel the way you do, you know? Maybe it's other factors.
Right.
I don't know. Put me back in like the 1600s, bro. You know? I'll go, like, pay me to go on across the ocean with your like goods. I don't know. Like that.
That'd be tough.
That's just like I mean, you can still do that, I guess, but it's just so different now. It's like not the same. It's not the same thing. It's not. They don't just like need bodies to go. Like you need to be like trained as like a real person out there. And you know, I'm very happy to be in like the age that we live in. But I definitely do think that there's a lot of factors, and I think this being one of them, just like, where is the, and many people are asking themselves this, like, where is the purpose? Like, it feels like in some ways, like,
right,
it's gone somewhere, like we can't find it, and I think when I look at other people who seem to have got it figured out or whatever, I like to think that they have it and that it exists, and that, you know, there's this sort of thing that maybe I'm just haven't found yet. But like when you talk to most people, I think that most people really don't know what they're doing anymore. Like,
yeah,
at all.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think it's tricky, and you know, I guess like as a slight pivot, I think that like, you know, maybe one of the cool things about the modern day is that there is like a little bit more opportunity to do things somewhat selfishly. I don't know if that's a good thing, but like, you know, like there are inherently, you know, there are things that are like very concretely, you can see the way that you impact people, but then there are things that are maybe not as clear to see. And so it's not like doing something that's like slightly more selfish seeming is morally bad, I suppose. But like, for example, I guess what I'm going with this is like influencers is an interesting one, where it's like you see people like, and I have like my Instagram, for example, I have like a very specified algorithm for these guys, where there's like a decent population of people that I see nowadays that are like young, you know, young 20s, got a job in software. This is a kind of like an open question in like software jobs, I feel like, because people optimize just like software is really good for work-life balance, but you know, oftentimes you're working on tasks that are very mundane and like you're not seeing the impacts of your work. So like you kind of lose that like, oh, I'm helping people, when like you're solving a database problem is your primary thing like every day. And so like your work is kind of just making sure that the thing is functioning in a way that people expect in the first place. It's not like you've made some new product that people are like, wow, this is changing my life. And so I think that a lot of software people kind of like get in it for the work-life balance and then find themselves like struggling a little bit to find purpose. And so like there's this massive like exodus. I don't know if massive is right, but there's a somewhat of an exodus from these big tech positions where it's become so much less popular to like strive for working at Google, for example, like in the Stanford population, for example. Like most people I see nowadays want to work for a startup, like partially because startups are just like popping and it's a lot easier to have a startup and like it's a lot easier to get funding and it's a lot easier to build them with AI. And so like there's all these things that allow for more startups, but like what's attractive about a startup compared to big tech is like just passion, right? Because your work-life balance is worse. Like you work more, you get paid less. So it's like what is drawing people to do that and make that jump? And it's just like caring about what they do. It's like the only draw, right? And like having more say in what you do and like seeing the impacts of what you do more. And like you see people like literally choosing 100-hour weeks over 40-hour weeks for less pay. Just in pursuit of that. Which I think is like a interesting paradigm shift. And then I even see like, I guess I got onto that with influencers. Like I even see people like quitting big tech to be an influencer. And like talk about like this dilemma of like purpose. Like I know of several influencers who are like quit to then start social media where their topic of their social media is them quitting due to lack of purpose and how they want to find purpose now.
Right.
Like that's a category. Like how is that a category? Because it's like it's a thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's a struggle. Like, you know, people at the end of the day like want to be happy and want to like see the value in what they're doing, see that they worked for something. And so like that's like a consideration in my own life.
And yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Just gotta move abroad, man. Just gotta move abroad. Figure it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I tend to be optimistic. I think like, you know, in my own life, like I've always been able to figure things out. Like, you know, I've kind of been, like we said, like in one vertical for my whole life, like as a student or whatever it might look like. Yeah. But like, you know, like I have like made things happen and like I'm very fortunate and privileged to be in a position where like I think I can continue to have some optimism. Like I've put myself in a position where I think fortunately I have the privilege of being optimistic, right? Because you can't afford to be optimistic if you're coming from really bad circumstances. But like I was really lucky and I made use of that luck to keep being able to afford that optimism. And so I feel like that's something that I like want to maintain, because I think if you lose the optimism, then you're not really making full use of your like privilege, I guess. Like I said, I think being optimistic is a privilege. So I think you should act with that optimism, because if you don't, then you're just acting as if you couldn't afford that. And that's like, what was the point of putting yourself in that position? So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
We will find our purpose, and we hope all of you do too. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I think that many of our episodes in the future will be like this. So
Yeah, as we navigate it ourselves.
true. All right. Thank you guys. See ya.